Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Dr. Jeff Evenson. I'm a board certified doctor of holistic health. I am not a medical doctor. I do not practice medicine. I don't pretend to do so. Instead, I work with people to get their health back through natural, holistic, homeopathy, naturopathy type practices here in northern Minnesota, broadcasting live from my homestead. And I already have one comment out here. Good morning, Christine. Love to see you with the show. Appreciate you listening. And other people, as you're coming on, post in the comments where you're watching from. I love to see where people are streaming from. And as we go through, it's going to be an interesting show, I think, because we're talking about Lyme this morning. And I've got some, we'll talk some tinfoil hat type of stuff. We'll talk some what's really happening. We'll talk about how the conventional medicine handles it, which they don't handle it very well. I'm going to turn that off. I think I get better color here. And how we can handle Lyme in, holistically, which we can do. We've got some great remedies here to help people deal with Lyme and the co-infections, and a lot of times that's where the medical side falls short, is they don't go after the co-infections that often come up with, that are often delivered with Lyme, and we'll talk about what all of that is. But if you're in Minnesota right now, at least where I'm at, it is snowing again. It's been snowing for the last, since Wednesday, off and on. Got a good layer of snow out there now, but right now it is super icy out because the temperature is fluctuating between the warm and the cool, and it freezes the water. So right now it looks, earlier it was raining a little bit, now it's snowing, and then that just turns into a chaotic mess out there on the interstates. And so it is Easter weekend also. I almost forgot to mention that. I hope everybody had a good Friday yesterday. Even a Monday, Thursday, as we prepare for Christ's rising. I'm not sure what my plans are going to be. I have an invitation to go join my sister and her family down in the Twin Cities, but the weather might prevent that. I tend not to go out when when the roads look crappy and whatnot. It just isn't worth the risk to do that. And so that's where we're at. So let's dive in. Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Doc Jeff. Okay. I want you to go ahead and grab your favorite mug, pull up a comfortable chair, and let's settle in together. It's Saturday, April 4th. 2026, and if you're joining me live from Minnesota or anywhere, the weather is finally warming up. And I tell you, when I wrote the show, it was finally warming up, and then Minnesota pulled a fast one on us. But at anywhere else, it's probably nice and warm, and I know people that have already cut their grass. That is crazy. But spring is officially here. Right? And with it comes the return, and I thought this would be so timely. Spring, with it comes the return of our tiny, unwelcome neighbors, the ticks. Okay? We have the adult deer ticks. Adult deer ticks are already active on any day that the temperature climbs above freezing. Okay? In Minnesota, the Metropolitan Mosquito Control District just put out a spring update warning that we could see a higher prevalence of Lyme disease activity in 2026. Okay, I don't know how they know that, but I saw another practitioner, she posted down in Iowa that it was being reported that people were finding boxes out in empty fields that were full of ticks. Okay, and so somebody put those boxes there, that's the assumption. And what's wrong with the ticks? Why would somebody put boxes of ticks out in random fields? And, so that's where you start getting a little conspiracy type stuff. And what happens with conspiracies? They have often come true, and there are a bunch of them that have come true in regard to Lyme. Okay. So thousands of cases get reported right here in Minnesota every year, and that's only the ones doctors actually diagnose and report. Okay. A lot of folks I talk to feel like tick season sneaks up on them every spring. And one day you're enjoying a hike or playing in the yard with the kids or the dog, and the next thing you know, you're doing those careful tick checks and wondering, did I get bit? Is this going to turn into something bigger? Okay. And that's exactly why I wanted to spend this morning's show diving deep into this topic. And so today we're going to talk about ticks, Lyme disease, and the co-infections that often ride along in the same bite. We'll look at how conventional medicine typically handles it, what it gets right, and where it sometimes falls short for people dealing with longer-term symptoms. And then we'll explore the holistic root cause approaches that focus on rebuilding your energy, your focus, and your overall resilience so you can actually move forward and feel like yourself again. But we're also going to touch on something a lot of people only whisper about or see debated online, the origins of Lyme disease. For years, questions about how this all started, especially the connection to government labs. Plum Island, right across from where the first big cluster showed up in Old Lyme, Connecticut, and Cold War era research, which got labeled as conspiracy theory, but there's research out there now and evidence out there now that shows it's not a conspiracy, it's actual truth. And a lot of people, when I hear, I'm going to just put this correction out, if you're wondering why I'm just calling it Lyme, because Lyme, the bug, the Lyme disease was discovered in this town called Lyme, Connecticut. So people often say, I have Lyme's disease. No, you don't have Lyme's. You have Lyme, singular. You have Lyme disease. So just a little nuance there on the word, the origin of it, okay? Well, some of those pieces are now backed up by documented history, as I told you. Willy Bergdorfer, he's the scientist who discovered the Borrelia bacteria that causes Lyme. And he worked on early tick projects for the military. And in later interviews and in the book Bitten, that's a good book, by the way. If you really want to know the history of Lyme, get the book. It's called Bitten, and you'll find it on Amazon. He spoke openly about some of that work. I read the book. It was really good. And just recently, in the 2026 defense bill that passed the House late last year, Congressman Chris Smith added an amendment directing the Government Accountability Office to investigate whether the U.S. military's Cold War bioweapons programs ever used ticks as delivery systems for pathogens. So what used to get dismissed outright is now officially under review by Congress and whatnot. And so sometimes they say that the science still shows that the Borrelia bacteria itself has been around in North American ticks for thousands of years, long before any modern labs. Okay, it wasn't invented in a test tube, but the rapid spread that we've seen, the secrecy around some of those old programs, and why so many patients with persisting symptoms have felt dismissed by the system for decades, those are fair questions, and more light is finally being shown on them. Okay? So, this isn't about fear or pointing fingers. It's about understanding the full picture so we can make smarter choices for prevention and recovery. Because whether this started naturally or got a helping hand somewhere along the way, the reality for so many families is the same. People are struggling with fatigue, joint pain, brain fog, and other symptoms that don't always resolve with the standard short course of antibiotics. And if you've ever had a tick bite yourself, if you're supporting a family member who's been dealing with chronic symptoms, or if you're just here because you want solid practical ways to protect your loved ones this spring and summer, this show is for you. So drop your questions or your own stories, or even just a quick good morning in the chat as we go. Let me know where you're watching from. I love reading them live, and we'll weave them in on what's on your mind. So, all right, let's get the first sip of coffee. All right, that's good. I love coffee. All right, so let's ease into this together. All right. We're going to start with the basics. Good morning, Janae. Great to see you. We're going to start with the basics. The tiny villains themselves. And let me just share the screen here. All right. The tiny villains themselves that are already out there in our backyards this spring. Okay. The main one we worry about here in Minnesota is the black-legged tick, also called the deer tick. These are the ones that can carry Lyme and several other infections. And I also want to point out, Lyme doesn't come anymore just from ticks. It comes from any type of insect that can sting you. So yes, that opens up the whole range. You can get it from mosquitoes. You can get it from fly bites. Any stinging, biting insect can transmit this bacteria into you. Okay? But the main ones we worry about are largely the ticks. And because they carry Lyme and the several other infections that come along with it. Now, size matters a lot with these guys, okay? The adults are about the size of a sesame seed. And I don't know, let's see. I don't know if you can see my pointer on there. I don't know if they give me a pointer. Let's see here. Oh, they do. Oops. Nope, that's not what I want. Sorry. Anyway, you can see there's a sesame seed on there. Still small, but you got a decent chance of spotting them if you're checking. The real sneaky ones are the nymphs. Okay. They're about the size of a poppy seed. They're tiny, flat, and dark. They can crawl right onto you, and you might never feel it. That's what's creepy about it. And so here's how the transmission works, okay? For the Borrelia bacteria that causes Lyme to pass from the tick to you, the tick generally needs to stay attached for around 24 to 36 hours or more. Okay? Some people, I've had clients over the years, I got a tick bite. My first question is, how long was it attached? Oh, just a couple hours. Okay, we should be fine. Okay? The system wants you to panic the instant you get bit by these things. But it generally needs to stay attached around 24 to 36 hours or more. Okay. Some studies suggest it can happen a bit faster in certain cases, but the longer it's on there, the higher the risk. Okay. That's actually good news in a way. It gives you time to find it and remove it properly if you're doing those regular checks. Now in Minnesota right now, adult deer ticks are already active. They come out any day the temperature is above freezing and there's no snow on the ground. And as I said, the Metropolitan Mosquito Control District, they're down in the Twin Cities, just put out their spring update, and they've already picked up the first deer ticks of 2026. Okay, the nymphs, those poppy seed sized ones that cause most of the trouble, usually start showing up in April and really ramp up in May and June. So we see deer ticks throughout a lot of the state, especially in the east central, north central, and southeast regions. But they're spreading and showing up more and more, even in the metro area. Thousands of Lyme cases get reported here every year. And we've seen over 2,500 probable cases in recent years, and that's just the ones that officially are counted. Okay? So what can you actually do about it starting today? What can you actually do about it starting today? Here are the practical steps that can make a real difference. All right. Do a full body tick check every single evening, especially after being outside. pay extra attention to warm hidden spots. You know where I'm going with this. Armpits, groin, behind the knees, in your hair and scalp, even the belly button. Don't forget the kids and the pets. Okay? I As I'm telling you this, I'm remembering a story from, I think I was 12 years old. I ended up with the wood tick that had bitten on, and I ended up with it on my scrotum. Yeah, we're gonna laugh with this story. It's funny. It's funny it's coming up now because so I had a tick on the scrotum and I couldn't pull it off. Okay, so imagine my dismay. 12 years old and I can't get this thing off. And so I tell my mom about it, and she starts kind of laughing a little bit. All right, and she had friends over, and pretty soon I've got other people looking in on me, and I'm trying to be as discreet as possible. I'm embarrassed as all get out, and they're laughing their asses off because I have a tick attached to my scrotum. And I look back on that now, and it's like I don't know that I might giggle a little bit, but the laughter went on longer than it probably should have. So they're trying everything to get this tick to let go. They're trying alcohol swab, anything. And finally, somebody just reached in there, grabbed it, and ripped it off. Um, and so that's what happened. Isn't that funny how that comes up? So the other thing, so do your full body check every single night, and if you live alone, have a mirror that you can, if you don't already have one, that you can use to shove down and check your nether regions when you're by yourself. Okay. What's also disgusting, I live up here in the woods, and my dog often will lay in the bed. I'm a dog person, so he sleeps on the bed and all that kind of stuff. And there have been times when I wake up in the night, I've got a tick crawling on me. I can feel it. Or I'll get up I'll get up the next day, and there'll be a big old fat tick laying on the bed somewhere that fell off of the dog, and it's just gross when that happens. It grosses me out. Um so but check your dog, check your kids, check your pets, all that. All right. If you have horror stories of where you found ticks, go ahead and put them in the chat or whatever. If you're brave. Treat your outdoor clothes. Now, this is chemicals, so I had to go look this up and find some other holistic options. But treat your outdoor clothes with permethrin. It's the gold standard, and it lasts through several washes. Okay. The problem with that is that stuff can absorb into your own skin, or use a good repellent on your skin. Okay. And here's a quick aside for those. I know you're already screaming, "Oh my God, Jeff, how can you make that?" All right. I anticipated that question. Here's a quick aside for those of you who prefer more natural, holistic options, because I know a lot of you watching lean that way, and it's a fair question. Okay. There are several plant-based repellents that research shows can be quite effective against ticks. Essential oils like cedarwood, geranium, lavender, and especially rose geranium have shown good results in studies. Okay. And you can make a simple spray by mixing 10 to 15 drops of these oils with water and a bit of witch hazel or vodka as the carrier. Okay. Some people swear by a neem oil spray as well. Just remember, these natural options usually need to be reapplied more often than DEET every couple of hours when you're outside. Okay. Christine says in the chat she had a tick on her head when she was little. Yeah, you just never know where and when they bite and how long. And we're going to talk about some other signs that you can look for. Another holistic favorite is using garlic or sulfur-based products on pets or in the yard, though the results might vary with that. I know I've tried different options with my dog. I've tried the pet collars that are natural. They're treated with the all the different essential oils, and they're not 100%, but they're not 0% either. I think they they work around 75% maybe, and keeping that out. But the key with any repellent, of course, is natural or conventional, is consistency and pairing it with those daily tick checks. Okay. So back to the basics on it though. Keep your yard managed, clear the tall grass, brush, and leaf litter around the edges where ticks love to hang out and quest for a host. Okay. If you want a quick visual in your mind, picture a single poppy seed crawling slowly up your leg after a walk in the woods. That's what you're up against with those nymphs. Okay. One bite from these little guys can bring more than just Lyme, though, and that's where the story gets even more interesting. Because for years, questions about how all of this really started have been floating around. What used to get brushed off as conspiracy theory is now getting some serious official attention finally. And after the whole COVID pandemic fiasco bullshit that the government played on us, the world government played on us, it's not a far stretch to consider that Lyme wasn't leaked from a lab. All right. So we're going to talk about the origin story. Most people think Lyme disease just sort of showed up in the 1970s in a little town called Old Lyme, Connecticut. But there's a deeper, more layered history here that for years got whispered about or dismissed as conspiracy theory, and some of those pieces are now getting real official attention. And here's why it happened. The first big cluster of cases happened right across Long Island Sound from Plum Island. Plum Island, it's a government facility that had roots in earlier biological research programs. And now here's where things get interesting. Okay. Let's see if I can do this. Here's where things, we'll add a little mystery sound to it. Okay. Or drum roll. During the Cold War, the U.S. military did conduct research exploring whether ticks and other insects could be used as delivery systems for pathogens. Okay. Whoever thought that was a good idea, I just don't understand the thinking, okay? That you could create something like that and not think that it would not ever get out. And if you did infect these insects and release them into different zones, how do you keep it from spreading back on yourself? Okay. So declassified documents confirm programs at places like Fort Detrick looked into this kind of work. And Willy Bergdorfer, he's the Swiss-born scientist who isolated the Borrelia burgdorferi bacteria in 1981, and he literally got the disease named after him, worked on some of those early tick-related projects in his career. Later in his life, in interviews captured for the book Bitten by Chris Newby, Bergdorfer spoke openly about injecting ticks with different pathogens and hinted at possible connections to the spread we've seen. He passed away in 2014, but those conversations and his personal files have kept the questions alive. And it's really interesting. When I read the book, the author, Chris Newby, there were points in time that she had to go into hiding as she was writing and pulling together the research for the book because she thought that she was being followed and shadowed. And I think she even had some stuff broken into and taken. And that adds more mystery, of course, around the whole thing. So, but let's keep it grounded, we'll be fair. Science shows the Borrelia bacteria itself is ancient. It has been found in North American ticks going back thousands of years. I don't know how they find that shit out. Long before any modern laboratories existed. How do you know this? How do they know this? Okay. It wasn't cooked up in a test tube. The bacteria has deep natural roots. Okay. But the explosive rise in cases starting in the Northeast, the secrecy that surrounded some of those old military tick programs, and why so many people with ongoing symptoms felt dismissed by the medical system for decades. That's how. Those are legitimate questions that deserve some sunlight. So, and here's what's timely for us right now. Okay, late last year in December 2025, Congressman Chris Smith from New Jersey successfully added an amendment to the 2026 National Defense Authorization Act. And it directs the Government Accountability Office, Congress's independent watchdog, to investigate the Cold War era bioweapons research programs and specifically look at whether the military ever used ticks as hosts or delivery mechanisms for pathogens between 1945 and 1972. Now, as I'm reading that out loud, I'm thinking he's asking Congress to investigate whether they were actually used. That doesn't tell them investigate to see if it was actually created as a bioweapon. Okay, see how some of the nuance there? I've been looking at this stuff for so long, I pick up on all these little nuances. All right, it includes reviewing work by the Department of Defense, the NIH, we know who they are, and USDA and other agencies involving tick-borne bacteria. Okay, Congressman Smith, he's been pushing versions of this for years, inspired in part by the book Bitten and the high Lyme rates in his own state. So the amendment passed the House, and as of now, it's moving forward. If the investigation finds no connection, Smith has said we can turn the page. I don't agree, but either way, more transparency is a good thing. Okay. So why does any of this matter as we sit here with our coffee in Minnesota? I focus on Minnesota because obviously that's where I'm streaming from, but this conversation, if you look at the Lyme transmission maps across the United States, it is heavy up through the Northeast. It's not just in New Jersey. It's all up in Maine, all down through New England, all the way across the country, and it's showing up everywhere in the country. So this discussion applies to everywhere in the country. Okay. So why does it matter as we sit here with our coffee in Minnesota or wherever you're at? Because when there's been a lack of openness around the origins, it helps explain why so many patients have felt gaslit or left without good answers. It sets the stage for why Lyme is rarely just Lyme, and why we need to look at the full picture for real recovery. One bite can deliver Borrelia plus other co-infections, and that's what we're going to dive into next. All right, and someone is doing the haha there. They're probably laughing at my story. So if you're just joining the show, pop into the comments and let us know where you're watching from. I think sometimes people don't like to do that because they don't want me to know who's watching, and that's fine too. I'm okay with that. But it's always fun to see where I'm reaching. All right. So let's talk about what actually happens when that tick bite delivers its payload. Okay. Now, I'm going to take off this guy and go full screen again. All right. So the main player is Borrelia burgdorferi. Okay. It's a spiral-shaped bacteria that causes Lyme disease. In the early stage, many people can develop an expanding rash called erythema migrans. Now, here's something important. The classic bullseye or target rash that doctors were taught to look for, it only shows up in a smaller percentage of cases. Overall, some kind of rash appears in roughly 60 to 80% of people with early Lyme. but it often looks more like a solid red expanding patch rather than a perfect bullseye. And plenty of folks get no rash at all. Other early symptoms can feel like a bad flu: fatigue, headache, muscle aches, fever, chills, or swollen lymph nodes. And if the infection spreads, it can show up later as joint pain, especially in the knees. Neurological issues, heart rhythm problems, or that deep crushing fatigue and brain fog that so many people describe. But here's the big twist that changes everything for a lot of people. Lyme is rarely just Lyme. The same black leg tick that carries Borrelia often carries other pathogens at the same time. These are called co-infections. And recent studies suggest they can show up in a significant portion of cases, sometimes up to 40% in certain regions for the most common ones. And all the ones I'm going to talk about on here, I can quantum nutrition test through muscle testing Lyme. I can test for all of the co-infections through the muscle test. Okay, I have test kits that help me with that as well. And the cool thing about that is I've got solutions that actually work well to get it out of your system. Okay, but let's walk through the main ones that you're likely to hear about, some of the co-infections. The first one is Babesia. All right, and this is a malaria-like parasite. Okay, this is why when you come to a holistic practitioner that does a lot of parasite work, I also do a lot of Lyme work, because parasites are delivered with Lyme in many cases. Babesia, it's a malaria-like parasite that infects your red blood cells. Common symptoms include drenching night sweats, air hunger, feeling like you can't catch your breath even when oxygen levels are normal. Okay? Cycling fevers or chills, and profound fatigue that feels worse than typical Lyme exhaustion. Standard Lyme antibiotics don't touch Babesia, so it can linger and make everything feel heavier, because they give you an antibiotic, and antibiotics don't typically kill the parasites. See the difference there? That's why they're missing the mark. Another co-infection is called Bartonella. And this is often called cat scratch disease bacteria, but ticks can transmit it too. It can bring migrating joint and muscle pain, severe headaches, neurological symptoms, swollen lymph nodes, you might feel them in your neck too, and even psychiatric type issues like irritability, anxiety, or rage episodes in some people. You can get stretch mark like rashes that sometimes appear. Another co-infection is anaplasma or Ehrlichia. And these bacterial infections often cause high fever, headache, muscle aches, and fatigue that comes on fast. They can affect blood counts. You can have low white cells or platelets. And while some antibiotics used for Lyme also cover these, the symptoms can overlap and complicate the picture. Okay. Studies show that when co-infections are present, people sometimes experience more symptoms, longer lasting illness, or a tougher recovery. The symptoms blend together, which is why it can feel so confusing. One person might have mostly joint pain, another might be wiped out with night sweats and brain fog. And testing adds another layer of challenge. The standard 2-tier Lyme test, ELISA, followed by Western blot, misses a fair number of cases, especially early on or when co-infections are involved. That's why so many people hear your test was negative, but still feel terrible months or years later. They don't know what they're testing for. And if you've been through this or you're supporting someone who has, you know how frustrating it is when the picture doesn't match the standard story. Now, I'm going to do a quick aside here. In my practice, one tool I use that helps many people get clear answers is quantum nutrition testing or nutrition response testing. It's a non-invasive muscle response approach that looks at the energetic presence or stress patterns related to Lyme, Borrelia, and the other Lyme, Borrelia, Babesia, Ehrlichia, and the common co-infections. It can give us additional insight into what your body is actually dealing with at an energetic level and help guide more targeted holistic support. Okay? This is not woo-woo stuff. This is science. Muscle testing, muscle response testing is rooted in science through applied kinesiology. A lot of folks who felt stuck with conventional testing find that it brings some real clarity, and we can dive into the real issues going here. So that brings us to how conventional medicine typically approaches all of this. I'm going to cover that, and then we'll cover what the holistic approaches are. So let's talk about how mainstream medicine usually handles Lyme and these co-infections. In the early stage, especially if someone has that expanding rash or clear symptoms right after a known tick bite, the standard approach is a short course of antibiotics. The CDC and IDSA guidelines still recommend 10 to 14 days of doxycycline for most adults, amoxicillin for kids or pregnant women, or cefuroxime, I can't even pronounce that right, as another option. For many people caught early, this knocks the infection down effectively and prevents it from spreading. Okay, that's important to say. Antibiotics can and do save people from more serious complications in the acute phase. No argument there. Sometimes, sometimes I might come across as anti-medicine or anti-pharmaceutical. I am a lot, okay? But sometimes you have to have a pharmaceutical to put the fire out, so your body can be prepared to handle the real work, okay? So it's okay. They also sometimes recommend a single dose of doxycycline as post-exposure prophylaxis if the tick was attached long enough or was in a high-risk area and was removed within 72 hours. That can reduce the chance of developing Lyme in certain cases. So what they mean by that, prophylaxis is a preventative, okay? Where things often get more challenging is when symptoms persist or develop later. And for people dealing with ongoing fatigue, joint pain, brain fog, or neurological issues months or years after treatment, many conventional doctors follow the current guidelines and diagnose it as post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome, or PTLDS. Great, another fucking acronym. The view is often that the infection itself has been cleared, but the body is left with lingering inflammation or immune system changes. At that point, longer courses of antibiotics are usually not recommended because large studies haven't shown clear long-term benefit. And there are risks like gut disruption, antibiotic resistance, and side effects. Co-infections add another wrinkle. Babesia often needs different medications, things like ativaquone and azithromycin, while Bartonella might call for a different combination. But not every doctor routinely tests for or treats co-infections so they can get missed. The testing piece we touched on earlier plays a big role here too. The standard two-tier blood test can miss infections, especially if done very early or if the immune system isn't mounting a strong antibody response. because it can be so subtle in the system. And that leads to a lot of people being told that your test is negative, even when they're clearly struggling. On the positive side, conventional medicine has gotten better at recognizing acute Lyme and starting treatment quickly in endemic areas. Okay. Emergency rooms and urgent cares are more aware than they were 10 or 15 years ago. If you went into the ER 10 or 15 years ago and said, I was bit by a tick, I think I might have Lyme, they would roll their eyes at you. But for the thousands of people who end up with chronic or persistent symptoms, the ones who feel dismissed, who are told it's all in your head or just anxiety, that's where a lot of the frustration comes. And when the origin story involves documented secrecy and slow acknowledgement of the full scope of the problem, it's easier to see why trust has been eroded for so many people. This is why so many people turn to holistic and integrative approaches. Not to reject medicine where it works, but to go deeper when the standard path leaves people still suffering. That's what we're going to cover next, how root cause whole person care can help rebuild energy, focus, and resilience even when Lyme and co-infections have been a long road. And I've worked with countless cases over the years with just that problem. So now let's talk about the holistic and integrative approaches. This is where holistic and transformational care really steps in and offers a different path. One that looks at the whole person instead of just trying to kill the bug and call it a day. The core idea is simple but powerful. We don't just focus on eradicating the infection. We rebuild the terrain, your immune system, gut health, detoxification pathways, mitochondria, those little energy factories in your cells, and inflammation levels. When the body is strong and balanced, it's much better equipped to handle Borrelia, the co-infections, and any lingering effects. First, testing. Okay. Beyond the standard two-tier test, many people benefit from specialty labs like Vibrant Wellness that look for more strains and co-infections, and I have the ability to order those lab tests. I can order any lab test from Vibrant Wellness. And in my practice, and I'm going to tell you, they're not inexpensive, but they're affordable. In my practice, I also use quantum nutrition testing, which is a non-invasive muscle response method that helps identify the energetic presence or stress patterns related to Lyme, Borrelia, Babesia, and the common co-infections. It doesn't replace blood work, but it often gives us extra insight into what your body is actually dealing with at a deeper level and helps guide more personalized support. And actually, a lot of folks who felt stuck with conventional testing find it brings some real clarity. Now, on the treatment side, two well-known herbal approaches that have helped thousands are the Booner protocol and the Cowden protocol. The Booner protocol, developed by herbalist Stephen Herod Booner, he uses targeted herbs like Japanese knotweed, which is great for reducing inflammation and fighting the bacteria. He uses cat's claw as an immune modulator and andrographis and others. Okay, it's designed to address both Borrelia and many co-infections while supporting the body's natural defenses. It often includes biofilm disruptors and mitochondrial support because those persister cells and energy drain are so common. The Cowden protocol from Dr. Lee Cowden uses a rotating set of herbal extracts, often from nutrimetics like Cemento, Banderol, Cumanda, and others on a schedule. It focuses on broad microbial support, plus strong detoxification to reduce the Herxheimer reactions and clear the toxins. And these aren't one size fits all. They get customized, and we layer in other supports that make a difference. I use a different company that has a great track record for handling Lyme, and there's others out there, but I typically use Cellcore Biosciences. They have got some formulas that will help knock this shit right out. Okay. But I muscle tested, I quantum nutrition tested to see what your body is asking for. And I also support your body. And that's where the medical side doesn't help you much. They give you the antibiotics, but they're not going to follow it up with support on keeping your system strong. Theirs is about kill the bug and get out. Okay. Well, so other things that we can layer in for support could be like an anti-inflammatory diet. And this is where people often have a hard time. It means cutting sugar, it means cutting processed foods, and often gluten or dairy for a period of time. Many people notice their brain fog and joint pain improve when inflammation drops. Now think about this right here. If you have inflammation in your body, this is what I use as a health coach when I'm working on your case to help reduce inflammation. But I don't just ask you to do this stuff cold turkey. I have a process that I coach you through and wean you off. Okay. Another one is with gut healing, because antibiotics and the infection itself can wreck the microbiome. Probiotics, binders like activated charcoal or bentonite clay, and gentle detox support can help. Okay. Then there's mitochondrial energy support. Things like CoQ10, magnesium, or specific herbs to help your cells produce energy again so the crushing fatigue lifts. I have solutions here for that. And then, of course, stress and sleep. Chronic Lyme thrives on a stressed nervous system. So simple practices like breath work, gentle movement, or nervous system regulation can shift the whole picture. Okay. The goal isn't endless antibiotics or suppressing symptoms forever. Folks, you have to stop suppressing symptoms sometimes so we can see what the signals are trying to tell us and go after it with some holistic solutions. It's about restoring resilience so your body can deal with whatever came in that tick bite and stay stronger going forward. And this ties right into the transformational care we talk about here. It's not just about getting rid of the infection. It's about getting your energy, focus, and quality of life back. So there's an important note too. Herbs are powerful, but they can interact with medication. So you have to work with someone who's experienced in dealing with this. Start low and slow to minimize any of the die-off reactions. Those are all things that I do my best to help people minimize. And I've seen this whole person approach make a real difference for people who felt like they were out of options. Okay? It respects what conventional medicine does well in the acute phase, but it goes deeper for the chronic, complex cases that so many people are living with. So there's a lot going on there, and if you have questions about it, drop them in the chat, or if you have a story you want to share, throw it in the chat. Okay. But this is really where holistic and transformational care really steps in and offers a different path. One that looks at whole person instead of just trying to kill the bug and call it a day. Weird, my computer screen just did a weird thing. All right. So I do love hearing your stories if you have them. If you've had a tick bite and recovered well, or if you're still in the middle of it, share one thing that's happened that's helped you, or one frustration that you've run into. Okay. These real stories help everyone here feel less alone. Excuse me. And while you're typing, I'll give you a quick practical prevention action plan. We talked about some of it that you can start using today. Of course, do a full body tick check every single evening, especially after being outdoors. Focus on the hidden spots, the armpits, groin, behind the knees, scalp, and belly button. Check your kids and pets too. Treat your clothes, your outdoor clothes and gear with permethrin. I think that's could. I've never used that, um, but it's toxic, and so I tried to stay away from the conventional solutions here. For skin repellents, use what fits your style. DEET if you want strong protection, or look at the holistic options like rose, geranium, cedarwood, or neem oil sprays. I've got some great solutions here from doTERRA. It's a Terraform solution. It's all got all that mixed in there, and I use it. I'm going to try to be more mindful to actually put that on my dog this summer. Keep your yard, tick friendly. I have help here. I have 13 chickens that walk around the yard and go after the ticks, so it helps. And a lot of times they'll spend time out in the woods because that's where it's a tick-rich environment out there for them. And then they turn it into eggs, and I get to eat them. Great. It just occurred to me. All right. So if you've been bitten recently, don't wait and hope that it goes away. Okay. Get it checked properly, whether that's through conventional labs, vibrant wellness testing, or quantum nutrition testing. Hey, Maria. Marie says firefly light therapy helped with Lyme, and that she didn't know she had. Spring burning can help too. You're right, and I burning the ditches, burning the tall grass or the grass from the previous season is a good idea. All right. And then of course quantum nutrition testing we can address it early. So we've had some, there's some responses that are coming in. If you're watching the replay later, feel free to comment below and I'll try to reply to those later as well. The comments will still be there. All right. So one last thing before we wrap. If Lyme or these co-infections have been weighing on you or someone you love, and you're tired of feeling stuck or dismissed, you don't have to figure it out alone. I work with people using this exact combination of advanced muscle testing, targeted holistic support, and sometimes if a person wants to, we can run a lab from Vibrant Wellness when it's needed. Many folks see real shifts in their energy and symptoms without long antibiotic courses. Okay. And if that resonates, the best next step is to book a free discovery call with me. The link is in the description. I'll also put it in the comments here. To my website. And this will go you will see a button on there and it brings you to an appointment page where you can schedule a discovery call, okay? Or you can schedule a full assessment. And there's a discount code on there, ready199. It'll get you some money off on the full assessment. Okay? Now, let's wind this down. So, I want to leave you with this, okay? Ticks are active right now in Minnesota, everywhere in the country. And Lyme, along with its co-infections, is something a lot of us are dealing with or want to prevent. I covered a lot today, and from how these tiny ticks work to the origin story that's finally getting official scrutiny, to what conventional medicine does well and where it often falls short, and especially the holistic root cause approaches that focus on rebuilding your energy, focus, and resilience. Okay? The big takeaway: you don't have to live in fear. And you don't have to stay stuck in symptoms if symptoms have been lingering. Whether you catch it early or you've been struggling for a while, there are real tools, including quantum nutrition testing and targeted holistic support, that help many people get their lives back. So if this morning's conversation hit home for you or for someone you care about, here's what I'd love you to do. Share this stream with a friend or family member who might be dealing with tick bites, unexplained fatigue, joint pain, brain fog, or any of the symptoms we talked about. You never know who needs to hear this today. And if you're ready for personalized guidance, whether it's quantum nutrition testing, vibrant labs, herbal protocols, or a full transformational plan, book a free discovery call with me. The link is pinned in the comments. We'll sit down, talk through your situation, and see if we're a good fit to work together. Okay. Spots are limited, so don't wait if you've been thinking about it. Thank you. This feels really good. Covered a lot of content here. So thank you so much for joining me this morning with your coffee. Okay. I appreciate every one of you who showed up live, asked questions, and shared your stories. That's what makes the show meaningful. Okay. Next Saturday, we'll be back with another real talk topic. I'll let you know what that is in the comments or on my page. And until then, stay resilient. Keep doing those tick checks. Support your body's natural strength and take care of yourselves and your families. I love you all. Okay. So before we go, let's close with a prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this morning and for every person who joined us here with their coffee and open hearts. We are grateful for your presence with us today. Lord, we ask for your divine protection over every viewer and their families, protection from ticks and the diseases they carry, but even more protection for their bodies, minds, and spirits. We lift up everyone who is struggling with Lyme disease, co-infections, fatigue, brain fog, joint pain, or any lingering symptoms. Grant them strength, comfort, and real healing. Guide them to the right support, whether through doctors, holistic tools like QNT, herbs, or the wisdom you've placed in their own bodies. Help us all remember that true healing comes from you and that you created our bodies with remarkable ability to restore balance and vitality when we care for them as your temple. Give us wisdom to make good choices and faith to trust in your timing and provision. May the spring and summer be filled with greater awareness, peace, and your sustaining grace. We ask all these things in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Happy Easter, everyone. Have a lovely, fun, family-filled celebration, or friends, get out there and enjoy life. Love you guys, and we will talk to you later.